For hundreds of years, we've been told how to set up a smoothing plane so that it does its job perfectly, even under the worst circumstances. A high angle is better for tear out. You want to keep that mouth dead tight. Moving that chip breaker right to the edge is very important. Skewing the plane can help. And many other things. But no one has ever done a comprehensive test with actual data behind it to back it up. It's always about, this feels good to me. This is what I like to do, and it's all anecdotal. Which is honestly a not half bad way to do woodworking. We don't need things to be perfect. But I like numbers, and I want to find out what things are. And that's why we built this absolutely crazy rig. We've got a load cell set up here on the end, connected to the computer over here. Back on this end, we have a drill that allows us to move that load cell forward and backward. And then underneath, we've got a board that we can slide past the plane. Oh yeah, on top of here, I've got a Bridge City VP60, back when they used to make quality things. This will be the plane that allows us to do all the testing. And this, all together, allows us to take a curl. One beautiful shaving, all the way from end to end. The cool thing is, as long as I log all the data from this, number one, I know how much pressure does it take to push that board underneath this plane. Number two, I can figure out how much weight do we need to add to the plane in order for it to engage. Number three, I can set the bevel angle to be anywhere from 30 degrees all the way up to 90 degrees. Number four, we can move the chip breaker in and out and get it dialed right to the edge or back up. Number three, we can open and close the mouth. We can also have a constant speed that runs it from one end to the other every time. This is actually something that Jeff from Reed Planes and I have been working on for about 8 or 9 years now. Finally, it's coming to fruition. But that's not all. We actually have these sensitive pieces of equipment we can use as well. Number one, we can actually measure the exact thickness of every shaving that comes out of it. Number two, this is a gloss tester. It actually tests the glossiness of the surface. Basically, how smooth can you make it? And we'll test this at multiple places along the board. And then number three, the pièce de résistance. This is a surface tester. Underneath, it's got this tiny little stylus that moves along. That stylus actually will sense the wood and tell us exactly how smooth the surface is. We can then test it at the same spot every time and get an idea of exactly how smooth our surface is. With these tools, we can get actual numbers for how good is our plane doing under those circumstances. And I can do it hands-off so that I can get readings from this that are accurate and I can trust. This is how we can read tear out and find what on the plane actually fixes tear out and compare apples to apples every time. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a little excited. So the first thing we have to do is actually validate this rig and all of the data we're getting. Is it consistent? Is it trustworthy? Is it something that's duplicatable? Is it something that we do one time and do another time and get the same numbers? What we decided to use is maple, cherry, and oak, straight grained, as smooth and clean as we can get. And we're going to run this plane through at different bed angles. And the only thing we're going to change is the bed angle of the plane. Because we can take this all the way down to 30 and all the way up to 90, we can see two particular factors we want to watch. Number one, how much force does it take to push the plane forward? We all kind of have an idea that the lower the angle is, the easier it is to push. The higher the angle, the harder it is to push. But in general, the higher the angle, the better the surface you're supposed to get. And therefore, there should be a perfect optimal location where the certain amount of pressure forward meets the surface you get, and you get this nice clean buttery spot, and that's the angle that you should do your plane at. But the other thing that comes into it is how much down pressure is needed. And that's where this rig can really work out, because I can add weights to it. Now, down at 35, 40, 45 degrees, we know this should engage by itself. It's a relatively heavy plane, and it should be able to take its own weight and actually do the work. But once we start getting the angle up higher and higher and higher, will this still engage? My initial hypothesis was that a higher angle will give us a cleaner surface. It'll be harder to push, but it should be able to go up to like 70 or 80 degrees and we still get a really nice clean surface. But somewhere around 80 degrees or so, you're gonna be having to put so much pressure into it, it's not gonna be worth it. But through the magic of doing all the work over the last couple months without you, I already have the numbers, so we can go take a look at those. So let's come over to my computer and let's take a look at these numbers. First off, you actually have to come down here to the bottom, and here you're going to see cherry, white oak, hard maple, and the graphs. And so these are each of the test series. And then in each one, I have blocks of all of the tests we did. So these are all of the tests with cherry on straight grain. At each one of these lines is one test. It is one shaving that was taken off, and we did each test 10 times. I actually did a bunch of tests earlier to test the testing, and I found out that it's relatively repeatable numbers, and so I didn't need to do a huge sample size. I did a few initially that were like 40 shavings of each and recorded them, and I wasn't getting too much past about 10. So I limited it to 10 so I could get all of these in, because each shaving was about 5 minutes of work. So to go through this so you can read it all, the first one is the sharpness. So at the beginning of every test, I tested its sharpness. So this one was 121, and then at the end it was 136. And so that meant that over this it got a little bit duller. 136 is still a really good edge. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how dull it got over those first 10 shavings. Usually that's just taking the absolute tip off of the shaving. Next is the chip breaker. When we put it all together, we measured how far is the chip breaker from the edge, and I kept this one back quite a ways, so about 2.5 millimeters. Most of them were between 2 and 3 millimeters to pull it back. Mouth opening, we measured that, so it was at 3.1. It's a fairly big mouth. And then the shaving was 0.17 millimeters. You'll notice everything here, I'm trying to put it all into metric, and there are a few things where I've transferred it back and forth, but it makes it a little easier to do some calculations from metric. The next one is then the pushing force. How much force did it actually take to make it happen? Now, the number that comes out of this is basically a nonsense number. It doesn't directly have a connection to pounds or kilograms. It's just the number that comes out of the load cell. So 185 then equals about 14 pounds or 3 kilograms. So it took about that much weight to push the plane forward through the shaving, taking a 0.17 millimeter shaving. That's a bit more force than I was originally expecting, but again, we're starting with a very, very heavy plane and a whole rig on this, and so it's going to take a little bit more force than you would normally expect at your bench, but we're just trying to see apples to apples here. Next is the down pressure, how much weight was actually on the plane, and this is what I was talking about. It's a little heavy. In this case, it's 4.7 kilograms. That's a decent amount of weight, and that's because it's a very heavy plane, and it's got the clamps that are holding it in place, and it's got the rig that's sliding on the rails, so all of that comes together in the weight. This is something I really want to take out in the future, and I'm thinking about making a rig to actually take some weight off and suspend it from the ceiling so that I can actually get a lighter weight on there and get some comparison to what it would be like with a normal bench plane in normal use. But we'll see how those go in the future. That's probably another series that will be coming up. And next, we're actually getting into the real numbers here. We did 3 different locations where we tested its gloss, and we tested on the same spot on the board every time. We drew a line down the board to make sure our mark was always in the same location. And then 3 with smoothness. And then the 4th line of each one is the average of those. And then down here at the bottom, we have averages for all of those numbers. And so these were all of the tests for the 30-degree angle. And then we did it again at 35, and we did it again at 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, and all the way up to 80 degrees. I don't know of many planes that have an 80-degree cutting angle without turning them into a cabinet scraper. So yeah, we took it all the way up to 80. We are color coding this, so red is not a good number, and green is a better number. You can see how it kind of gets better, especially with the pushing force. The higher the angle is, the more pushing force it took to push that plane through the work. And then we can come over here and we actually see the graphs. This is the compilation of all of the average numbers. The first one is the horizontal force. How much force does it take to push the plane? You can see there's a pretty straight curve going all the way up. The higher the angle of the cutting edge, the more force it's going to take to push it together. Then we've got the vertical force. How much down force do you actually need for the blade to engage? And this changed by the different types of wood. We'll be covering that in a moment. But you can see all of these are the baseline because I can't get anything lighter than that. The 4.7 kilograms is the lightest that this rig can weigh. So we can't really go below that unless I come up with a rig to actually take some weight off of it. But you can see as we get into those higher angles, it takes a little bit more downforce for it to engage. And in particular, I wasn't looking for, does it just cut the wood? I wanted to make a nice, clean, smooth cut, and I wanted it to be full width, full length, length and buttery smooth from one end to the other. And that took a little bit more downforce in some of those higher angles. Then we come down here to the gloss. And this was actually where things started to surprise me, in that the higher angles, the higher we got, there was a drop off in the glossiness of the surface. And that actually, when you think about it, kind of makes some sense, because you're not shearing it as low at an angle, and so it's not peeling away as easily because we're working with straight grain wood. So it does get a little bit more fuzzy the higher the angle you go. So yeah, I guess it is kind of making sense that after that 65, 70, 75, it starts to drop off a little bit. And then down here with the smoothness, the numbers going up are the exact same thing, because a lower number in smoothness means that it's actually a smoother surface. So you're going to see the numbers go up a little bit on those last few. But this all was just the cherry. We can actually come down here to the tab and we can see all of those numbers again with white oak. And then we can come down here again and see all those numbers again with maple, and actually go through them all again. And I absolutely love this. Now with the white oak and the maple, I only went to 70 degrees. With the cherry, I went all the way up to 80 degrees. This is, I just wanted to see what I was running into, and I did not see any need to go past 80. It was causing more problems than it was worth. But it was interesting to actually push it all the way up to 80 degrees. But then we can come down and we can click this last tab called Graphs. And this is where everything comes together. You can see everything in blue is the hard maple, the red is the white oak, and the cherry is yellow. Here we can see the comparisons of horizontal force. How much force did it take to push it? You can see there's a pretty equal comparison all the way up. There were a few differences where the white oak was harder to push than the cherry. Until we got to the higher angles, it came down a little bit, but that's still within the variability of the numbers we're getting. But you can see they're all a relatively similar curve. Moving across here to the downforce, again, you can see how they're all equal. They can't get them any later than that, but then they all start to pick up. One of the interesting takeaways is that the hard maple was a little bit harder for the plane to engage in, and it took more weight earlier with the hard maple. And then the cherry was the easiest of them. I didn't have to do anything on cherry until 60 degrees. And in that case, cherry actually was buttery smooth. It allowed the plane to engage, which kind of makes sense. It's a little softer wood. Maple is the hardest of the three that I tested, so yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. Interesting to see in graph form. Then we can come down here and look at the gloss and smoothness, and in these they don't really show that big a difference, because the drop off really wasn't until like 65 or 70 that the numbers really started to go down. In the smoothness there was a little bit more at the 65, but not by much, and particularly it was in the white oak. And white oak is ring porous, and therefore there are all of these holes that little needle is falling into. So you're always going to get a rougher surface on white oak than you are on cherry or maple. But here you can see the maple down here gave me a really clean, buttery smooth surface, which is something you'd expect from a diffuse porous, hard wood. But honestly, I was kind of surprised by some of these numbers. So this is the starting point, and we're going to take this down the road and see what happens in the future. I know all of these numbers can be kind of hard to see on the screen like this, so I am going to have links to the raw data sheet down below in the description or up in the cards or wherever you're going to find it. So you can actually go on here and see the number yourself. And if you want to actually take this data, you can copy the file and do whatever you want to do with it. So you can go and see what interesting information comes out. And it's going to be even more interesting as we start to get into other things. If I can take the weight off and see what the lower weight planes are, what does skewing it, what does moving the chip breaker mouth and all of those things do, this is going to be a lot of fun to see. The really fascinating thing about all this is that Jeff from Wright is actually making new planes. He's making them based on the data that you get from his rig, rather than making them on what feels right or what is traditionally done. You can see what are the actual numbers coming out of this to design a plane that follows the but against the grain, and I want to see what things will actually fix that tear out. So that's going to be the next test of testing the chip breaker edge closer and closer and closer, the mouth tighter and tighter, the angle higher and higher and higher. Which one is going to create better work? And when you mix them together, then what are you going to get? We've got another plane that actually allows us to skew the bed so we can test skew angle as well and see how that does on tear out. And the nice thing is, because I have several of these boards all cut out of the same board, you get this identical grain from the exact same board, all at the exact same angle, and so we should be able to get repeatable tear out every time we do this. I've got one little problem though. The problem is, this takes a lot of time. It was around 30 hours of testing just to do this initial test. And in order to get good, accurate data, you do it slowly and meticulously in order to go. You have to do it over and over and over again. And the sample size will give out. It's going to be a little while. See what you see about the data. If you want to see the data in raw form, there are links to it down below. You can actually go through that and see what comes out for you. And we'll be adding more details. So stay tuned and maybe send me some Red Bull because I've got a lot of work ahead of me. So this is how I do testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.